and welcome to the latest episode of the Give My Head podcast. I'm Tim McGarry, joined by my comedy colleagues
Michael McDowell and Damon Quinn.
Thank you very much for remembering your names. It's episode 45. Can you believe that? We've almost done a year, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't been on seen us before, why not? Where are you? Go and link and like and subscribe, and you can follow, or you can see all the former episodes. I think it's about 40-something episodes. And you can see all sorts of people, from Shane Todd to politicians to anybody you want.
Watch us get noticeably older.
Not over a year. Not over a year. I haven't got noticeably older over a year. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I need to tell you that on the Sunday, the 12th of October, we're taking this wonderful show live. We're going to the Mandela Theatre Hall. Mandela Hall in Queen's University on Sunday, the 12th of October. Get your tickets now. Link below. There's going to be a special guest. There's going to be people. There'll be a bit of stand-up. There'll be a bit of reading of old episodes of Give My Head Peace. It'll be a fun night, so please go and get your tickets now. They're selling fast, actually. We're doing quite well. We want to sell out the Mandela Hall, not Mandela Theatre. So get your tickets now for Sunday the 12th of October, Give My Head podcast live. Before we start, do you like my t-shirt, boys? Do you like that?
You're not a Star Wars.
No, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but this comes from a good friend of the show, Northern Iron T-shirts, Northern Iron Tees, and Rome McClure sent me free clobber. So Northern Iron Tees, very, very good. You're not a T-shirt man, are you? Do you wear T-shirts, David?
Just depends. I have one from the National Sarcasm Society.
Oh, right.
It says, like, we really need your support.
Like that. Our guest, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, what I also forgot to plug is you can see some, or you can listen to some old episodes of Perforated Ulster, which is still on BBC Sound. And also, you'll know this gentleman, our very good friend, a very good friend of the Hole in the Wall gang, because if you go on to BBC iPlayer, there are 4 episodes currently up there of The Long and the Short of It, the history show I do with my very good friend, Dr. David Hume. Dr. David Hume, welcome to the Give My Head podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
How are you, sir? You're just back from the US of United States of America.
Yes, I am. Yes, a very interesting time.
Did you have to hand your phone over?
My phone didn't actually work. That's a whole other story.
Right.
But
you
can imagine technology.
You don't go to you gotta get Tim McGarry off your phone if you're going to America.
These days, yeah. They are going to check your phone now, aren't they?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, we managed to get the work visa, which was quite a thing to manage all that online, but we were over doing a couple of programs, a couple of Ulster-Scots stories for America 250, so lots of areas with lots of people settled from this part of the world. Couldn't County Down,
right?
A little town called Kingstree was one of the places
straight
we
into
went
history immediately. You see, that's what I like about you, David. No, there may be people watching this, David, believe it or not, who don't know who the feck is that young man there. David is my colleague on the long and the short of it. He's an historian, an Ulster-Scots specialist, and an orange historian, big man in the Ulster-Scots community. I used to go to your hometown occasionally for the Broad Island Gathering, which is a big Ulster-Scots festival in the centre of the universe, which is
Ballycarry, absolutely. And you were very well received, I must say. You were a big star.
I was made a clan chieftain.
You were indeed, yes.
I have a certificate and all. I am a clan chieftain of the Ulster-Scots in Ballycarry, which is a fabulous the
Ballycarry, great. Yeah.
Temple Corn Cemetery.
Yeah. Great spot. You're the happiest I've ever seen you. When we made that long and short of it episode right on the banks of the River Boyne.
Oh yeah.
You were really, really, really relaxed.
It was a fantastic program. It really was.
Because we've been all over the place. Do you remember I tried to drive you to Cork and got lost?
Yes, I remember that very well.
Cork via Wicklow.
Yes.
But we have taken you all over the place. You have been to the memorial site for the death of Michael Collins in Bale na Bla in County Cork. On the other hand, you've taken me to, especially over the radio show, numerous orange halls around the country.
That's right,
which I have visited on numerous occasions as part of the long and the short of it. And got an education, I shall say. I did have a very good education. So how did you get into all this nonsense? Could you not get a proper job? What did you
Well, I do have a proper job as well. History has always been interesting to me, from primary school. Just remember being really interested in history. And
you're originally from Ballycarry, where you're born. You're a Larne man now, but you're Ballycarry
Well, I'm in the fringes of. I'm in Greater Ballycarry now.
Right.
About 4 miles from Ballycarry.
Speaking of history, though, you are a member of the '64 club, aren't you? I mean, the same as us. We were
Yes,
born in
yes.
1964.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, we're all
Did you bring that
of
up?
a certain vintage. Yes.
Yes.
Year of the
I'm
Dragon.
afraid so.
Year of the Dragon.
Year of a Dragon, yes, we're all dragons, yes. According
Yeah.
to the Chinese
Oh, yeah.
zodiac,
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the top thing to
Yes.
beat.
Dragons are the best.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're all dragons.
I am the youngest of the four.
Of the four
Just to
dragons.
let you
Oh, of
know,
course,
Just,
yes,
just had my birthday yesterday.
You are catching up though now.
I am catching up. Yeah, I'm feeling slightly jaded today. But so please continue the conversation.
So Northern Ireland was a hell of a different place in 1964, wasn't it, to what it is now?
Well, it would have been in the 60s. I mean, I suppose my recollections are maybe early Troubles period, possibly.
Yeah.
I remember we lived out in the country, so I do remember. The one thing I do remember is that the helicopters used to go with searchlights over all the electricity pylons because we were on the line down to Ballylumford. I remember seeing that every night. You know, that was one of my memories. But I don't remember much else from that 60s.
Well, I remember the
period.
troops coming in.
Yeah.
Remember the troops coming in? Yeah, the first British
Only
soldier I ever
5?
met. First British soldier I ever met gave me a banana. Yeah, I was sitting in my front garden in Riverdale, and there was a foot patrol coming up, and they had the old, the old like Dad's Army type helmets.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember him just coming up and he just looking up in this big. So he goes, "Have a banana, son."
There you go.
That was that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the first time I ever saw them. You know, and that was
Right.
of course in the days when they first came in, they were welcomed.
Yeah.
By the welcomed by the Catholic community.
Yeah.
They were welcomed on the Protestant community as well, but it was quite. It was the start of it. It was the honeymoon
Yeah.
period.
Yeah, it was
before it
very
all
much so,
turned.
that's right, yeah.
Before it all turned. It all turned nasty after a while. But
Yeah.
that was my first memory anyway.
Well, that's an interesting memory to have.
A banana.
Yes, yes.
Have a banana, son.
Right. Okay. Did you think the people of Andersonstown needed bananas? Or
Must have thought we were starving or something. I don't know.
Had you seen a banana before? Is the question. Had you ever seen a banana before?
bananas,
So
yeah.
just check. Just check.
They were wandering around Culture handing out avocados. Have an avocado. So you're the same vintage as us, but as we've discussed before, and you know I'm a big fan of integrated education stuff. You and I took very divergent paths, shall we say, in terms of our education and stuff like that. You became a member of the Orange Order. I can't join the Orange Order. They're not letting me
No,
in.
but I can't join the Ancient Order of Hibernians either. I mean,
Can you not? Can
one
you?
of
Do
those
they?
things,
Do
no?
they? Are they? Do you have to be a Roman Catholic to be?
Well,
in
you
the-
definitely have to be. Yeah, I think you have to be quite sort of devout
Right.
to do that. Yeah.
That's
So,
why
but
they
that's
haven't
still.
invited me.
But see, that's where I think everything goes wrong because we're all different and we've all these different aspects. So it's not necessarily, it's not something that's wrong in my
Yeah.
mind on either side.
Yeah.
It just means that people are reflecting their culture and their identity and all the rest.
Well,
You
of
actually
it,
want
so.
to join the Orange Order?
Not particularly.
Well,
No,
he has
no.
mentioned a number of times.
Well,
I mean,
no,
maybe
but
it's
Do you keep raising?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know, I mean, it's nice. It's been nice to be asked.
And can you join the Apprentice Boys of Derry?
No, I think that's
Same rule?
No, I think same rule. We had this
Yeah.
discussion with
All
Billy
right.
Moore.
All right, okay.
Didn't you research your DNA thing?
Yes.
And didn't you discover that you were part Ulster-Scots?
I am part Ulster-Scots, only a few generations back. Yeah,
Yeah.
my great granny was the result of an illicit affair
That's good.
between a Catholic maid from Nuns Quarter and a Presbyterian farmer from Inisharkey on the Ards Peninsula.
Wow. Those Presbyterian farmers,
Those
eh?
no, not even a farmer, a farmer's assistant. Okay, not
farmer's
even a
assistant.
fully formed farmer.
All
This
right,
is a farmer.
yep.
This is like a shit shoveler basically from the Ards Peninsula, and a Catholic maid, and they had an affair. And the child was they didn't get married, which is interesting. But and she then ended up in Resharkin and married my great grandfather and became a McGarry. She was Cleland, and he was McCleland. They weren't related, but they were Cleland and McCleland, both of which are Ulster-Scots names. as
And
we
was
know.
that when the McGarrys turned Catholic then?
No, no. She was brought up as a Catholic, but her
Right.
father was a Presbyterian.
Right, right.
I think the fact
So-
that you use the term farmer's assistant suggests you're not from the country automatically. Tim.
Is that right?
Farmers assistant.
I'm not full
But it's
culture.
a good term, though. It's a good term.
Well, no, that's what he was described that as in the
Documentation.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, deep down, is there Protestant in ye?
There's
And
Protestant
that's
and
why
co-
you, and loyalist, and that's why you want to be.
100%.
That's why you have this sort of, desire to join the Orange Order.
And actually, he plays a mean lambeg drum, I have to say.
I do,
Well,
I
you
do
see,
play
done
the
that at
player
our
Lambic
festival, well, yeah,
drum.
yeah.
I love a carvery as well. So I'm part of
Yeah, well,
love a
that's a
carvery.
very culty thing. Yeah,
What about
carvery.
tray bakes? What about tray bakes then?
But to be fair, that was the first time I actually met you. Was we were
Yeah.
doing this documentary, Tim McGarry's Ulster-Scots Journey, way back in 2013. A very good man who we know well, Mark Thompson,
Yes,
Mr. Ulster-Scot himself, recommended you need to speak to David Hume and you need to go to Ballycarry. And that's the first time we met. To be honest, I think I said to you at the time, I don't think I knew a proper Orange man, you know, as a friend or whatever, but we immediately hit it off and you were very welcoming and said, look, Ulster-Scots is for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, people take the hand out of it, including
Some people do.
Some people round this table. Some people still do. But actually, we did a couple of documentaries about Ulster-Scots and the Ulster-Scots language, which went down very well. People who would normally be of that persuasion were going, actually, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I've always loved that Pastor Begbie bit where he's trying to learn Ulster-Scots and he's talking to Uncle Andy and he's all about, oh yes, now Ulster-Scot for Grey Abbey is Gribba and Ulster-Scot for Balnahinch is Bench. And what's Ulster-Scots for Londonderry? He goes, it stays the same.
Well, it's interesting you should mention Grey Abbey as well, too, because whenever I was out in the States, we went to this town called Kingstree, and it was founded by a group called the Witherspoon family and their big extended family circle. But Robert Witherspoon, who was 8 when they went in 1734, I think it was, he left an account in 1835, and he mentioned Greba, Greba, in the document.
Right.
So I thought, wow. So we were able to, I was telling the people in Kingstree, I said, well, this is how they would have spoken. So you can find a lot of things from.
That was the first ever Witherspoons in Greba. The cheap drink.
Well, we can't claim that. No, I don't think so. But one of them ended up being a signatory of the Declaration of Independence. One of those Witherspoons.
Oh, right.
And there's a connection.
The American one.
Yes, the American one. Yes, and there is a connection with Reese Witherspoon as well in that family. Somewhere down the line too, the actress. Yeah.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon, she never said that, did she? I didn't see that film. Film's that from?
Right.
Yeah, I turned in the morning. I'm on. I keep taking the coffee.
Have some coffee, Tim. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I think people. I mean, a lot of people assumed Ulster-Scots was all made up. And
Yes.
so
Yeah,
on.
including
But,
us. Actually,
yes.
we have to be honest.
But the reality was, from about sort of from about the 1980s, I was aware in our area we have a poet called James Orr, who you're familiar with, and James Orr was writing bilingually because he's writing English and Ulster-Scots, and it was very obvious that Ulster-Scots as a language was under pressure. One of his poems, he talks about, there's a wake, and the minister's there. The minister comes to the wake, and they're all in the wake. And when the minister comes in, he says they try to quat braid Scots, a task that foils their art. So it's seen as an uneducated language.
Yeah.
So there's a definite sort of a stigma to Ulster-Scots as time goes on.
That happened to Irish as well. That was seen by the Catholic Church. Ironically, said, this is the language of the peasants and stuff. If you want to get on, you learn English. What are you doing talking that silly old
I think
language?
Irish probably fared better as a language because Ulster-Scots sounds very like it's bad English.
Yeah.
Whereas Irish doesn't sound at all like English. So
again, yes, we would have taken the bit, but if you read some James Orr, and some of it is very, very dense, and you go, I do not understand what's going on here, and you do need a literal translation. There's a brilliant poem he does by the way about the assizes at Carrickfergus. He does a great one about a wake and a brilliant one about the court in Carrickfergus.
Right. He does a great one about Slemish Mountain after 1798, The Wanderer. And it's 3 verses, but it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is Ulster-Scots. It starts off, was there, she axed, because somebody's wrapped the window pane type thing. And I like that word axed, because you find that in modern language as well too, people using that. So people just assumed it was bad English.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Ulster-Scots community, we perhaps think that English is just bad Ulster-Scots.
Well, the late Alex Salmond, let's raise a drum. Alex, you interviewed him for your show
Scots language one, yeah.
Yeah, he was quite defensive of it as well because, it's the originator, the Scots.
Yeah.
And then the Ulster-Scots then
Yes,
follows
that's
from
right.
that. But he said, in his experience, growing up in Scotland, and that there was always that attitude that if you talked like in the Scots language, that you were. They kind of had that kind of expunged. You know that
Yeah.
that you know that wasn't the right way to
Yes,
talk.
you
You had to
didn't
talk
sound
proper
educated,
English.
yeah.
You weren't educated, and you weren't you know
Yeah.
you weren't sophisticated enough. If so, it was kind of when you were growing up, you were encouraged to not talk in Scots.
Yeah, yeah.
I suppose a similar thing.
Well, over here, yes, and encouragement over here included people telling me, when I was at school, if I spoke Ulster-Scots, I got it beaten out of me nearly,
Yeah.
that they were very severe, and you got wrapped in the knuckles if you used words. And
well, funny
so
enough,
on.
he said something entirely similar.
Yeah, yeah.
Was his experience. Yeah.
Alex Salmon, yeah.
But I think a good thing about it is, we can laugh at ourselves. I think that's an element of, Ulster-Scots too, that when people do make fun, like not spreading too far in the table, but and we can.
What's he looking at there?
We can take it in good stead and so on. I think you
Yeah.
have to take things that way.
Well, we did. We genuinely enjoyed the documentary about the Ulster-Scots journey, because the history of Scotland and Ulster is slightly different from the history of the rest of Ireland. Because the Scots only, and you go to Grey or you go to Ballycarry, there's a lovely monument to James Orr. There's a lovely church there, which is the first, am I right, first Presbyterian congregation
First
on the
Presbyterian
island of
congregation,
Ireland,
yes,
in Ballycarry from
Yes.
1614.
Yeah. Well, 1613, but
Oh,
you did get the congregation right, so that's pretty good.
I hit the post, but it didn't. Yeah, it bounced back out again.
It's interesting the contrast though, but that in Scotland, the defence of the Scots language manifested itself in support for the SNP, Scottish independence, all that sort of stuff. Whereas in the north of Ireland, shall we say, it's expressed in the Unionist community.
Yes, it is a lot. It's quite a nuanced thing, I think, because Ulster-Scots are quite, believe it or not, they're quite sort of, contrary people, and sometimes a bit thran and stubborn as well. I know you find that hard to believe, but so I think there's an element of where national identity lies. It's really interesting, I think, in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Because I see myself as Ulster-Scots. That would be my first sort of, look at it. And then a sort of, when you look back to the whole Scots background, you've got like Scots Borders, and our family's Scots Borders clan, and there was a man called Thomas Musgrave who once said, they're Scottish when they will and English when they want to be type thing, when they live on the borders. So they just interchange things, and I see a lot of that in history in terms of that community. Once you look at things like 1798, and then you come back 1914, the gun running and all of those things. People find that hard to understand if you don't see the continuity and also the sort of sense of identity that attaches to that.
Just naturally rebellious.
Well, I think it's a thing that comes out of the Presbyterian connection. That Presbyterianism was very democratic, and it was a reformation from the ground up. So Presbyterian moderators are elected, people are elected at the Presbyterian Church annually, and so on. And that then started to outwork itself into society, and people saying, well, why do we not have a vote, in wider society? And that's particularly relevant in the 1770s, when you come to the 1770s right through the 1790s.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be understood, this sort of democratic ethos, which goes right through then to the American Revolution and so on too. There's a fantastic story from the American Revolution, but just before the American Revolution, of they used to have these musters, so they were supposed to provide people to go to muster to defend the settlements and so on in the frontiers. And somebody wrote that in this little Presbyterian community, the captain raised his voice, the men all left. So in other words, they'd voted the captain, and they didn't think that entitled him to shout at them.
Yeah.
That would work well in battle, wouldn't it? Go there, Captain Private. What?
Of course, the Presbyterians are also were also the great preservers of and defenders of the Irish language.
Yes,
as well.
They were. Yeah, I think to be fair, it was probably about promoting the gospel type idea, and particularly in the west of Ireland and so on. And you had a period called the Bible Wars then in 19th century Ireland between Catholic Church and Presbyterians and Church of Ireland over all that. But it did preserve the Irish language, absolutely, and there were some very key people involved in it. And the Reverend Rutledge Kane, who was a top Orange man in Belfast, was an Irish speaker and so forth as well too. So there's lots of nuances to all these things.
Yeah, 1798. We like that period of history is very, very interesting, because people now, even I do another history podcast with a certain gentleman, but there was a question asked by a guy who said, how come the Presbyterians were all radical and revolutionaries in 1798, and then 20 years later we're all unionists?
Yeah.
And it you had to explain the whole. The Presbyterians were very influential in the American Revolution of 1776. supported the French Revolution, and were very supportive of that, and the whole issue of Presbyterians being discriminated against under the penal laws, not as much as Catholics, but were suffered under the penal laws as well, led to a lot of radicalism. But it wasn't entirely. I mean, sometimes that's slightly exaggerated as well. Not all Presbyterians were United Irish.
Yeah, well, it probably is. I mean, certainly in the East, they were very radical. Yeah. In the West, it seems to be very different, and I think it's to do with population demographics. General Lake, he says in the West in 1798, he can rest the security of the West in the hands of the Presbyterians, but that's very different. He couldn't have said that in the East for sure. No. So I think it's about the demographics. In the East, the Presbyterians are very much a strong majority, effectively. Right. So they don't feel there's any threat from anybody, whereas in the West, Catholics, Presbyterians, very mixed, and they're a bit worried about all of that. And of course the outcome of 1798 then doesn't help things. No. It's seen as very bad, and there's one of the poets, James Campbell from Ballyonure. He wrote a poem, and in it he says, in 98 we armed again to right some things that we thought wrong. We get so little for our pains, it's no worth minding in a song. So in other words, we got really badly let down, and that's behind us now type thing. And that's really what sort of a lot of what happens. But the radicalism doesn't go away. The radicalism still stays, because they're supporters of the Liberal Party right up until Gladstone. So Presbyterian communities are the communities that are most inclined to vote Liberal, and Catholics would vote Liberal as well, whereas Church of Ireland people vote Conservative. So there's all of these aspects to it.
Yes, I like the nuances and stuff, because people here sometimes were very black and white, and Protestants are all Protestant, and particularly from the Catholic community, they go, you don't know the difference between a Methodist and a Presbyterian or a Free Presbyterian, or who did we interview who was it was what do you call him, Trevor Burney.
Yes.
What was he? He wasn't just a. He was
a Methodist, something second Methodist. Or
was a Reformed Methodist or something. From Mana, of which there are about 6, I think. But people don't even understand the differences in.
I don't know where I came from. I was a pro.
Exactly. Well, they see that's it. But even within things like the Orange Institution, you would say like there are different strands within that as well.
There
it's not
would be,
even homogeneous.
I mean, in the early years of the Orange Order, it looks as if there certainly was a predominance of Church of Ireland members. Right. And the Presbyterians weren't really involved until about the 1830s. And then there was a man called Henry Cook, Reverend Henry Cook, who sort of declared
Didn't he have a statue in the town there?
He does, indeed.
So he was seen as he would have been seen as a very traditionalist Presbyterian figure. And he declared what he called a sacred marriage between Church of Ireland and Presbyterians in the 1830s. But at the same time, what was happening was Daniel O'Connell was rising to power, so you had this sense of, we're a minority, the Prods are a minority in Ireland, so this is a juggernaut that appears to be on the go. So then they come much closer together, and it's after that you tend to find a lot more membership in the Orange Order, to the point where today it's probably more Presbyterian than Church of Ireland, I would say. I would have thought so.
We did a very good documentary about that, didn't we? Henry Cook and the he was new licked and old licked. He was fairly old licked. He was very old licked. Is that true that he's a statue outside Inst? Yeah. But he has his back to Inst, because is that true? Because he deliberately had his back to Inst because they rejected his.
Apparently so.
Is that true, or is that?
Well, that's what I have been told. So I'm not 100%, but I think it is true. Yes, But
because I think one of the guys who either founded it or was very heavily involved at the start at Vinst was a United Irishman.
Yeah, they would have been quite liberal, the founders. Yeah.
So when they put your statue up, were you going to have your back
in the studio? Me and him.
Well, my statue will be outside Solitude.
Well, obviously.
Me and Jim Magilton. With your die before we put the statue. No, actually, I want to go like Edward Carson. I want my statue before it die.
That's a much better.
Yeah, that's a better way to go. I want my statue. Can we organise that?
Hitler wouldn't let them build statues. Do you know that?
Is that right?
Adolf wouldn't let it, because he was convinced.
This conversation is veering rather than an historical sweep. No, that's okay. No, that's what the show's about.
Exactly, but he wouldn't, because he said
Hitler didn't want to
stand. He get pulled down.
All right.
He said, he's just seen so many places where revolutions had pulled statues down.
There's a dam.
Yeah.
So Hitler didn't allow any, because I presume people wanted to build statues, and they said yes, would agree.
You can have a wee bust. You can have a bust and a plaque and all. You can have a
right. Okay.
Food for thought.
Because you don't want to be pulled down.
Yeah, okay.
You don't want to be sitting there like 90
Yeah.
and going, they're pulling my statue.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be like Hitler either and say, don't be building a statue to me, lad. Right, I'll have to rename my book as well, my struggle with my autobiography.
My
there's
struggle for a statue.
There's a statue of Lenin, big huge statue of Lenin. I think it's still there outside the former Leningrad train station.
All right.
And it's a huge statue, and he's out and he's doing this.
Right.
And they wonder what what's he doing? What does he mean? But they reckon he was trying to get a taxi.
There's still some statues of them about. I was in Krakow, and there's the Nova Huta, which is the big town outside Krakow that the Soviets built as an insult to Krakow, because Krakow didn't vote for unity with them the referendum that they. And so as a punishment, he built a huge steelworks and a Stalinist town, and there's a statue there that I think they keep just as a kind of reminder of how dreadful things were.
The best way to treat a statue is the way they do it in Edinburgh, where they keep putting the traffic cone on Wellington's head.
Yes.
I think that's really good. Rather than pull it down, just mock it.
That's right. No, you have to keep it there.
Well, there was the statue of Queen Victoria in the Royal Victoria, in the grounds of Royal Victoria, and people kept putting a fag in
it. You see, that's what I like about history. You can go anywhere. You've on your Facebook, is it the historical magpie?
Yes.
You go anywhere.
I
you
just
love
absolutely
all history.
like a magpie, just fit all over the place. Yes.
So you can be about anything at all.
Could be about anything at all. Yes. And some of the quirkier things are really interesting that you come across. I mean, I've found stuff about there's an earthquake in Port Stewart in 1840, believe it or not.
An earthquake
held up on the north coast and so on. So there's amazing stuff that you just pick up. I go into the British newspaper archive quite a lot for research and so on, and of course you really have to fight hard to stop getting distracted.
Yeah,
there's so much different material that comes up. It's just crazy.
I know your lovely wife Sandra, and he takes her to graveyards and cemeteries everywhere he goes. There's a lovely cemetery here.
It has to be followed by a shopping centre, though.
Can I go? Can I go spend a day wandering around this cemetery?
No, it's not quite that bad. There's usually a shopping centre involved afterwards as well.
All right, okay. Well, a good cemetery. I like a good cemetery.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Do you have any dealings with like Tom Hartley? Because he's into all that.
Well, Tom and I we served in the Flags and Culture Commission together, so we got some quite interesting chats.
He likes a good cemetery.
He does, yes, and Tom has been to Temple Corran Cemetery. I've brought him down to show him Temple Corran Cemetery, but he does a very good tour up in the city cemetery. We've been on that too. Yeah, it is very good.
I took Jason Burke's tour. Good friend of ours, Jason Burke, good historian, and did the whole tour of City Cemetery, which is a jolly good cemetery.
Oh it's fantastic cemetery, and there's just so many different cemeteries around. I've followed the sort of trail of famous people in cemeteries in Northern Ireland type thing, so there's very few I think I probably haven't been to now, but there are some interesting cemetery tours as well. Another fellow, Peter McCabe, does some quite good cemetery stuff too. Peter's involved with the George Best house in Belfast.
Just
as well.
on that, whoever, if you do make a statue of me, don't not the George Best.
Okay. Possibly.
Make it look like me.
Possibly not the Queen.
Just make it look a bit like me. Sorry, diverge there. But City Cemetery, I took the Jason Burke tour. Loads of famous people in there, including Fred Crawford.
Yes, Fred Crawford's in there. Yes,
and you think, well, this is in the heart of West Belfast. Fred Crawford, for those who don't know, was the man who organised the Larne gun running of 1914. And you think, well, he ended up in West Belfast, but of course the demographics were very different in those days.
So
there's a lot of Protestants in there. And there's a wall underneath, isn't it, buried underground to separate the Catholics and the Protestants. So even in death, you go. I don't know who was protecting from whom the Catholics going out and what the.
They're still doing it. We're living people. The walls all over Belfast.
Is that not to do with the slippage as well?
Is it, well.
It moves, don't when you get buried.
It
moves. So they might actually
mix.
So that was the other reason for it, so they wouldn't actually physically mix it.
Not the name
All,
drop.
all interesting stuff, of course.
Not to name drop, but at breakfast with Kieran Hines the other day, the actor Kieran Hines.
Not the name drop.
Not
Yeah,
the name
yeah.
drop, but he lives in Paris, and he lives near Père Lachaise Cemetery,
Oh.
brilliant cemetery, which has
Yeah.
Jim Morrison of the Doors,
Yeah.
has Molière, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde, of
And
course.
Oscar
Yeah,
Wilde,
yes.
of course.
Yeah.
But he said his wife went to Père Lachaise to book a grave. Said she wanted to buy a grave for, they're in their 70s now. Wanted to buy a grave and went to Père Lachaise and said, no problem, give her a price and give her a plot and said, that's where you be there. And then she was about to leave and said, by the way, they said to her, how long do you want it for? No, what do you mean it's a grave? How long do you want it for? Apparently you don't get it forever.
Oh, yeah,
You
right.
genuinely don't get it. Well, if you're Oscar Wilde, presumably
Obviously
you
you
get
keep
yours
getting
forever.
donations.
But they're
Yeah.
going to go, you can get it for 15, 20 years and they can turf you
Turf
out
you.
and buck you
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
get somebody else.
Where do you
in.
go?
And you, well, I don't know. That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
How long do you want
Yeah.
it? Well, I was hoping to keep it.
Well, do you keep the monument? I mean, or does
No,
your
but
body
I-
go?
I don't know, but you don't get the
No.
grave forever.
Well,
like,
that's. I mean, there's no cemetery in New Orleans. It's the same because I remember reading about it that they've only, and they're sort of like it's almost like sort of filing cabinet type
Yeah.
cemetery, one of those types. So yes, I think space is at a premium in some
Right.
areas, and then. But I would say if you're famous, the gravestone
Right.
marker will stay because it helps to bring the tourists in. But
I'll be all right then.
Well, we filmed in Père Lachaise for
Yeah.
the Oscar Wilde Edward Carson
Yes,
documentary we did.
we did.
Uh,
We did
but
indeed.
yeah, it's fascinating walking around and seeing all that.
I missed that. I couldn't get below.
No, I was doing the editing work, like all the boring kind of job work.
Yeah, Edward Carson and again the fascinating documentary. It's not available online, is it? Is it available online? I think it
No,
is.
it's not on iPlayer. No,
This
it
is
was one of the. It was done under the old license, so it only
Right, but
appears
it's
in
probably
iPlayer
on,
for a few months.
it's probably on YouTube if you want to watch. Edward Carson and the Fall of Oscar Wilde, the man who destroyed Oscar Wilde.
Yes.
That's what it was. Edward Carson, the great Ulster leader, who a lot of people again don't know, came from Dublin.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of documentaries about Edward Carson, big Dubliner,
Yeah.
not an Ulster man at all.
yeah,
Didn't even like
honorary Ulsterman.
Honorary did he even like this place?
I think at the start he found it a bit. I think he found it hard to understand some of the people he met in Belfast because of their accents, but he did come to like it absolutely because he felt there was nobody. He said he would rather be here than anywhere else in terms of leading people and so on. They were
Right.
they were
You
totally
sort of-
devoted to him.
You sort of imagine that Edward Carson would have spoke like Ian Paisley or something like that, but he didn't. The fact that he's this
Yeah,
broad
yeah,
Dublin
and
accent.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
When you think about the aspects of that,
Yeah.
I think that's really fantastic. But you can obviously see there's a great devotion. He is the great figure. There's nobody
Yeah.
else. Not even Craig really compares to him.
Yeah.
James Craig. Although James Craig is his lieutenant, his organizer effectively. But it's
He
Carson
was the brains of the
who's the orator.
organisation, and Carson
Yeah,
was
yeah,
the kind of as you say, the orator.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Again, good statue. That's a good statue.
Check
right?
out statue.
Yeah, dude, that's 13 feet or what?
The Carson statue.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it'd be better around the back though.
Round the back.
Yeah, round the back.
Round the back, where fewer people can see it. No, but I think we've moved on. I give Edward Carson. Edward Carson.
No,
like,
it does-
James Craig is to the side. A lot of people don't even know he's there.
Yeah,
He's,
yeah.
James
That's
Craig's
his grave, that's right,
is at
yeah,
the side.
And it does sadden me actually because you do see stuff like, and it amazes me, like that. For example, we were up at Craig's house,
Yeah.
just beside the nursing home up there,
Oh yeah.
Craig
Yeah,
Avon House.
it's
Craig Avon
Craig
House,
Avon
and you're
House,
going,
yeah.
what is I mean, that's a massive piece of history, and it's falling to bits, and it's a disgrace that the government isn't, or a shared government isn't going in there, because that is an amazing showcase. I mean, it's a beautiful house as well. I mean.
Yeah.
It must have magnificent grounds at the time. They've sort of gone now. They've been swallowed up by the nursing home, but it's still an amazing site. And I do think it's a real a disgrace that it's been allowed to go into
Well,
that.
even worse than that's the assembly rooms, and I think they're finally doing something about the assembly rooms.
Aye, true,
in
that's
Bridge
true,
Street,
yeah,
they were
yeah.
from data from the 1790s. That's where
Yeah.
Henry Joy McCracken was tried, wasn't he, in the assembly rooms? Wasn't he?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Oh, you see, I've got one.
Got me
over
there.
That's where they held the Harp Festival.
Where they held the
Yeah,
art festival.
yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure he was tried there.
Yeah,
Okay.
he could well have been. He could well have been.
Yeah.
Where was he hanged?
One.
Cornmarket.
Cornmarket, well, where Woolies used to be. What is it now? It's not Woolworths. No.
It's not Pottinger's Entry, is it?
No,
No,
when
no.
they used to, they went to, there were a lot of pubs around there, and the Muddlers Club and all that, where
yeah,
the
yeah.
United Irishmen would have met and
Yeah,
stuff, but
yeah.
Poppingers, they would have hung around there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was Cornmarket where he was actually hanged,
Yeah.
and then they tried to revive him. They got his body and tried to burn him to St
Yes.
George's at the bottom of High Street there.
Oh, right, okay.
That's
That's right.
tried
they
to
did,
revive him.
That's right.
Well, they took him. I think they took him to Rosemary Lane. Mary Ann McCracken was there, and she
Yeah.
had. I mean, it was possible if it wasn't done properly, to use that term, that the person wouldn't die.
Right.
Well, that was
So
the,
if you hand over some money to the hangman, possibly,
yes,
you know,
you bribed the hangman.
you bribed the hangman.
Not
So
to hang you,
yeah.
as you know,
Yeah.
not to hang you well.
Mm-hmm.
There was a good chance.
So
that
the
you
story
could
was that happened, and that they took him back. I think it was to Rosemary Lane, and they were trying to revive him when a patrol went past the soldiers and had to stop. And then that, well, whether he would have been revived or not is another matter. But she did send for Dr. MacDonald, who's regarded as the father of Belfast medicine, who was very friendly with the McCrackens, and he sent his brother instead. He didn't go, which is something he said he regretted the rest of his life, that he hadn't come to try and help her, because they were very, very friendly, and that was a part of the ways for the McCrackens and him too. So it's very interesting, you know, stuff. And Mary Ann McCracken's an amazing figure as well in terms of Irish history. You know, her just her resilience and all of this. And
Well, she ended up a unionist, staunch unionist, didn't she?
well, yeah, I mean, I think the union came about. And the union, as far as Belfast was concerned, it became an economic region with Manchester and Glasgow. So the union brought lots of benefits with the Industrial Revolution and so on. So I think historians maybe differ a wee bit as to how, you know, what her perspectives were. But I think she accepted, a bit like James Orr, when he came back after the 98, they fell into the union, and they thought it was the best option. You know, particularly with Orr, certainly. They felt they couldn't trust the Catholics that had been involved with them, that they had turned against them and so on in the west of Ireland. It had all gone very, very wrong. So the best security was in the union, effectively, for everybody type thing. So I suspect Mary Ann McCracken went into that mode, that the time went on and the union was there and it was established. And maybe I think I have an idea that radicalism probably, you know, dissipates as you get older. So that possibly happened with her as well.
Well, to be fair, she was in her 80s and still handed out leaflets.
Yeah, she was.
Anti-slavery leaflets down at the docks here. Mary Ann McCracken, very well worth researching. Clifton House, of course, she was involved in Clifton House, which is the poor house, and also the education of young women and girls, and she was massively involved in. I remember we interviewed the late great. Do you remember Eamon Phoenix? We did a radio show about Mary Ann McCracken.
Yeah.
And
Did you manage to get him to shut
Eamon was such a wonderful guy.
It was a 3-hour programme.
I genuinely asked him one question, and 25 minutes later I said, "Thank you, Eamon. I think that's the programme done."
Eamon was fantastic. But did you know that Mary Ann McCracken and her brother were educated by a man from Curran Castle called David Manson,
right?
Who was very well ahead of his time in terms of education. So
Did he have a gang?
it wasn't. It wasn't. No, he didn't have a gag. And actually, as opposed to any sort of he didn't have corporal punishment in the class.
Right.
So if you did well, you got promoted to the front of the class, and you became king or queen for a day type thing. And if you did badly, you just sat further back. But the idea was to encourage you to do better the next day type thing. So there's no punishments, and also boys and girls were educated together, which was very unusual at that particular time. So 2 of his pupils were the McCrackens.
Right.
And he's seen it. There's a plaque to him down near the assembly buildings, actually.
All right.
So he's quite a far-sighted educationalist.
You see.
That's great stuff.
But I mean, we could kind of forget at the time, 1790s. It was a very radical place, but it was quite a small town in Belfast in those days. It wasn't until Belfast grew enormously from the early 1800s up until the Victorian period. Like it went from about 20, 30,000 to 100,000, something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, up to that point, it wasn't Belfast Lough, it was Carrickfergus Lough, Knockfergus Bay or whatever. So yeah, Belfast expanded very rapidly. Industrialisation, of course, just expanded so rapidly, and people coming in from the country to the mills and the factories and so on. That was a big thing.
Do you get recognised now? You're the man off the telly, do you? Do you get
sometimes, not too much.
For selfies and autographs and things?
Not too much, but you have a few fans, I find. So
have you fans? Because I get loads of people stopping me saying, "You be nice to that doctor. If you leave him alone.
I'll pay attention.
I'll pay attention. Yeah, just listen to him."
Yeah, no, a few people have recognised me actually, so which I find I don't expect to be recognised type thing. Right. So then when it happens, just a bit surprised. But yeah, and people we get great feedback from the programme. You know, people just love the
Yeah,
the
no,
sort
I
of
get
the
it.
mix of it, and the way it's put across. It's very light.
Yeah,
Light history,
and
but
a
heavy.
TUV counsellor said something nice to me.
Ah, yeah, well,
Said, I like
there's-
that long and the short of it. It's the best thing you do. Which I think is a backhanded compliment.
That is indeed, yeah.
If there was one. I said, no, I took that on the chin. That's okay. You know,
It's excellently produced.
It's superb. Sorry, yes, Damon and Michael are producing, directing.
Yeah, and very well directed.
Yes, and very well directed. Though,
And very well shot.
Yeah, better say that. Yeah.
Yeah, very well shot by
And
Jim.
it sounds great. Yeah.
By Jim Cray. But David and I did about 7 radio series, didn't we, before?
Yeah,
And it was you who
seven,
came up with the
at least seven.
title, The Long and the Short of It.
Yeah.
And I apologise for making jokes about your height, but you know, I don't do it as much as I do with Olivia Nash.
No, you don't.
Oh, yeah, okay, well.
But we have made the odd
Olivia
crack
and I
at-
will swap notes about that. So.
But you did come up with the title, and I think the BBC went, "Oh, that's a great idea for a title," because I know you're sitting down, but
Yes.
David and I
Well, can we just see?
have a disparity in height.
But the thing about it is, but it was on the radio. That's what I mean. And it took them 7 years to work out. Actually, for this joke to work, it has to be on the TV. Sick.
That's a good point.
Indeed.
But, so yes, you are vertically challenged. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
And I'm 6'4". But then you did come up with the title, and I went, "That's brilliant."
Yeah,
and the
I
BBC
just-
went, "That's."
yeah.
And it was a really good idea because we'd met during the Ulster-Scots show, and you liked
Yeah.
the history, and I liked history. And why not
Yeah.
do it from two different? Because all the history
Yeah.
programs are
Yeah.
basically one
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
telling you one view.
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea is you come with your unionist nonsense, and I come with the truth. I mean,
The truth.
we pull you, drag you, kicking and screaming to
a better understanding.
to a better understanding of why the British have oppressed us for 800 years.
Well, it's all how you perceive these things, isn't it?
Exactly. No, genuinely. I mean, I've said this out loud on several occasions that I've learned a new perspective on certain things. You know, and I
Ah,
think we
yeah, that's
have.
good.
I think
That's
we
good.
have
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
that
well-
there's subtlety and nuance to Irish
Oh,
history,
absolutely.
which is sometimes people do not get.
No, they don't. I mean, I would, find a lot of people say to me too, and it was the same with me, that we didn't get a lot of Irish history in school. So things like Daniel O'Connell,
Yeah.
Charles Stewart Parnell. I mean, for A level possibly Parnell, I think, but a lot of Irish history was really a bit of a mystery to me too. So it has opened up.
You quite enjoyed the Michael Collins one.
Yes, the Michael Collins one was interesting. Yeah, well, I think the big thing about being able to be where something happened.
Yeah.
That is very
Yeah.
important, and that's very you have the visual impression of it all. Then,
Yeah,
so
it
you can
is
see where everything
interesting,
happens. So that brings it to life, really, effectively.
Yeah, because
when you're in a landscape.
You read about the ambush and you kind of go, okay, and then
Yeah,
you actually
yeah.
physically see, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I can see how this
yes,
actually works.
yeah.
The first time I was looking for went to Bill in the Blah, it's quite hard to find if you're not messing.
yeah.
Way back before there was sat nav stuff, and we're driving around, we're trying to find it, and we finally find this wee hamlet, Bill in the Blah, and I go, and still can't see it. I goes, I know what I'll do. There's a garage there. I'll go in there and I'll ask, where
Yeah.
the thing. I'll walk down. I didn't even get a sentence out. I just walked in. He just goes, it's up there.
He's sick and tired
Yeah.
of people.
And then there was a bar. I can't remember what it was. It was a bar. It was in, and obviously people go on pilgrimages to see the site of Collins. Where Collins met his end, and big debates about the treaty and whether they should have signed it, and who was a proper Republican and who wasn't, who
Yeah,
betrayed who.
yeah.
And there was a bar, and there was a sign above the bar saying, "Anyone arguing about Michael Collins will be asked to leave." Because obviously he was sick of it. He had enough of it. People going to kill each other, over Michael Collins, 100 years later. like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done loads of Irish history stuff, and we've a new series coming. You'll be glad to tell people we're waiting for
Yeah.
the BBC to finally decide what the topics
Subject's gotta
are.
be,
Yeah.
But one of which we know they're going to do is the Vikings, the Vikings, and the other one is where did all the Protestants go down south,
Yeah,
which we
yeah.
did the radio version of. which
Yes,
is
that'd be really interesting.
which
yeah.
is the
yeah.
population decline of Protestants in the south of Ireland from the 20s onwards.
Yeah,
Where some people said was a discrimination and all of that, and some people
Oh, yeah.
go, well, no, it was just natural wastage, and it was in the wastage. That's maybe the wrong word.
Yes,
I think perhaps so, yes.
I think that's just
Maybe the
way
wrong
I
word.
do.
It was due to natural reasons.
Yeah, it'll
Voluntary
be really
reasons.
Voluntary.
it'll be really interesting to be at that, because it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
And it ties into a lot of the home rule stuff we did about the decree, the mixed
Decree-
Morris decree, and so
yes,
on.
the-
Mary.
Yeah,
Natemery.
Nay Timmery, yes.
Yeah.
No, you see, now, unlike when I did a research for this program, because I watched some stuff about your life. Now, what I found really amazing, because there can be so few people now of a certain age who grew up without a television.
Yeah, I imagine probably are. Yeah.
Yes, this man had no TV as a kid.
Yeah.
That's
So
Ulster-Scots
it was-
too mean
they
the
were-
Bible.
So we were talking about Star Trek, and I could see
Yeah,
him
yeah.
going, I don't know what you're talking.
Yeah. No, I suppose so. And
Until
on
when?
one hand, well, I was at secondary school, I think, when we got TV, and we were out in the countryside, so we were bypassed by electrification, as it was called in the 1920s. The farms all got electrification, but we were too far out at that time, I think.
Do you know
So-
Andy Pondy or what's with Muller?
Well, at the weekends,
Right,
I went to my aunt and uncle's and I saw TV at the weekends.
Oh,
So I
right.
saw weekend TV. But during the week, when you went to school, if at early years of secondary school, they would be talking about, oh, did you see this, that, and the other? So I just bluffed and said, oh, yeah. quite
But that's
blasé, you know.
I mean, it's because mass media. I mean, I know it's now sort of fragmented with all the kind of internet and all the different
Yeah,
channels
yeah.
and stuff. But at that time, that was like you
Yeah.
had to be
2 or 3
you had to see
channels.
Morgan,
Yeah.
but you had to see Morgan Wise. So it must
Yeah.
be quite slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I did see snatches in different places. There was an old lady who was very friendly with us. So on the way home from school, sometimes we call in with her, and I always remember John Craven's news round being on, at that particular time. And things. So you got snatches of it, but on the other side of it, it really encouraged a love of reading for me. So I just devour books, and I still devour
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps. You look at it now and you see all the different things and all the games that everybody has on social media. And I think, if I had that, would I have been such a reader? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think I might have been more focused on TV and all of that side of it and the games and stuff. So I think it was very good from that point of view. But in the idea of everybody else talking about different shows they'd seen during the week and so on, And I remember the first TV we did get then, we still hadn't got we had to get a generator. We have electricity now, of course. But the first electricity was a generator, a big Lister
Right, okay.
generator, and it was an amazing big thing. You had to turn the handle on it to get it started and stuff like that. But the first television actually ran off batteries, car batteries.
Right.
So it was a wee small TV. I remember we got it. So you had to go and get a battery charged and replace the battery on the TV and take the other one to get charged and so on. So very, very different. Yeah.
Well, people
and,
listening to this going, why did you not just go on your phone and go on the TV? Watch the TV that way.
No, but it's amazing.
Well, it is when you look back on it. Yeah, it really is. And I mean, in a way, I'm glad. I'm glad that was part of my sort of growing up
No, I think it would have been
experience.
good actually. Yeah. Because it's
Love of reading is a great thing. Is that good?
Yeah.
Reading books. Is
Oh,
good.
absolutely,
Love of
definitely.
reading books.
Definitely is,
We're all
yeah.
readers. You're a good reader. You're a
Yeah,
very good
and
reader.
it's funny, but because there was a period where it was all kind of Kindle, and that's kind of died again, and back to just reading books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a feel about it. Or something.
Oh, absolutely. You can't beat having an actual book in front of you.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
So.
Smell of a book. A brand new book.
You should see him around Waterstone sniffing.
Yeah.
Put it down, Tim. Put it down.
Barred from Waterstone. It's very embarrassing. Yeah, put my statue with my back to Waterstones. Yeah. I launched 2 books recently now.
Did ya?
We launched our friend Chris Moore's book on Concora, and then Cormac Moore had a book out, a very good book about the Boundary Commission, which Dan, our
I know he loves
Dan
it. He
from
loves the
1L.
subject.
Oh, he loves the
Exactly,
Boundary Commission.
Yeah, can't get enough of it.
Did you buy the book yet, Dan? Have you bought the book yet?
Twice, yeah.
It's a very good book. We did an episode on the Boundary Commission. Have you
Yeah.
seen that episode of The Long and the Short of It? No.
Oh, I'll catch up.
You'll catch on. See, some people don't appreciate history.
Well, actually,
He'd
now
watch
that,
it after Love Island.
now that you mention it, I mean, I was at the school I went to, and there was a couple of the pupils talking to me, and they said that they watched our programs as part of the curriculum, particularly the home rule one, the Larn gun running one.
yeah,
was
yeah.
of particular interest to them. So,
Yeah.
so there you are.
We're part of the curriculum. We're educating, informing, and entertaining all at the same time, David.
Yeah.
We should get a pay rise, to be
You
honest.
should
with
get,
you.
what we've done.
So yes, there is a brand new series of The Long and Short of It happening. We're filming this year.
Well, we're
it'll probably be out
delivering delivering in February. That was what
delivering,
we
and
agreed,
so
so-
it'll be out New Year. So 4 more episodes, but you can catch up on the previous, the 4 that are out now, ladies and gentlemen. David, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Kind of flew rather quickly. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, last question. I want about history, and people say, "Oh, what's the point of learning history? It's boring and all of that." But I mean, you and I, we do get a lot of people going, "Thank you very much for telling us about Irish history," because they don't
Yeah.
really know about it and
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it in a way that is, it's a bit amusing, but a bit of respect. respect and all that. But why do you think history is important? Why do you think?
Well, I
people
think there's a great quote from
Dan, listen to this.
There's a great quote from William Faulkner, which is along the lines of, the past is not dead, it's not even the past. And I think history helps to inform you, you know, for the present, and you help it helps to understand why are things the way they are, and also people hopefully learn lessons from history as well too. But I think it's a fascinating subject.
How does history explain Donald Trump then?
Well,
That's another program.
that's you've at least one program ahead of you with that one.
But you do need to learn your history. Did you hear about the fellow who rang the Nolan show to complain about Casement Park? And about if Casement Park was going to be built, he complained. He said the trouble is, he said, if the Republicans get their way and they have this GAA club again to build a stadium, they'll rename it. They're going to rename it after some Republican or other. Republican. Yeah, instead of that Casement Park. So do a bit of research. That's it. David, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. David Hume. Like and subscribe and like the podcast. This is episode 44. As a 45, so there are 44 episodes for you to catch up on if you haven't seen them already or listened to them. And again, don't forget, we're in the Mandela Hall. No, not the Mandela Theatre. The Mandela Hall on Sunday the 12th of October for the live show of the Give My Head podcast. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. David Hume.
Thank you.